I'm Rhiannon Kinghall, Principal Tax Policy Advisor in the CBI's Economic Policy Team. I'm going to run through the CBI's immediate thoughts on the autumn budget. Against a sombre and pretty dark economic backdrop, the Chancellor has attempted to grip the steering wheel of the UK economy, but delivery will be everything. First, the economic backdrop. Since March, the OBR has revised down GDP growth in all years of its forecast, dipping to 1.3% in 2019. Whilst the UK is forecast to grow, it's a subdued outlook. This is mainly driven by an anticipated downgrade to productivity growth, which is expected to remain below pre-crisis levels over the next 5 years. On to the public finances. Recent data indicates public finances are healthier this year than earlier this year, and borrowing is expected to decrease each year from 2017-18. But the weaker economic outlook has led to an upward revision to public borrowing in subsequent years. This is because major tax receipts are expected to be hit by the weaker productivity growth. That said, although public finances are expected to worsen in later years, the government is still on track to meet its fiscal mandate for the structural deficit to be below 2% of GDP by 2020-21. However, the structural deficit is expected to be higher, giving the government just over half of the headroom expected in March to meet its mandate, a reduction of just over 11 billion. On public debt. Debt as a percentage of GDP is still expected to peak this year and fall in subsequent years. However, this is expected to be at a higher path than in the updated March forecast due to the revisions in the outlook for GDP. The government is still on track to meet its supplementary target for debt as a percentage of GDP, which will fall in 2020-21. So, on to the policies that were announced at the budget. From the CBI's perspective, it was refreshing to be so positive about the changes, especially against such a difficult economic backdrop. On the positive measures, firstly, business rates. A big win for the CBI was the announcement on business rates, which will be a welcome boost for many firms and is a result of a sustained campaign by the CBI, other business groups and individual firms. This shift in inflation indexation will help boost the competitiveness of businesses with a physical presence, particularly in the retail and manufacturing sectors. However, further reforms are needed to keep this tax in step with the modern economy. On innovation, the Chancellor has recognised the valuable role for innovation and technology to tackle the UK's productivity problem, with AI and driverless cars part of his ambition to motor the economy of the future. New funding, alongside a boost to the R&D tax credit to 12%, will ensure the UK is a great place for businesses to innovate and ensure progress towards the target of spending 2.4% of GDP on R&D by 2027. On housing. The housing crisis is one of the greatest challenges the country faces, so it's right to focus on supply rather than just demand. The ambition to build 300,000 homes a year is essential and stretching, but it must swiftly translate into delivery. On infrastructure. Infrastructure investment is critical to unlocking the UK's long-term prosperity. Boosting transport through an expanded National Productivity Investment Fund is positive, as are further details on the allocation of the Transforming Cities Fund. Making sure that all regions can access the funding they need will be essential, especially where a devolution deal has not yet been agreed. However, some areas require further work. On skills and education, the key challenge for government on skills is making the apprenticeship levy fit for purpose, supporting the Chancellor's commitment to increasing productivity and opportunity. The commitment to keep levy flexibility under review is helpful, but does not go far enough. To really deliver more growth and higher pay, the levy needs to fund more of the training that businesses need as soon as possible. On VAT, it's right that the government tackles VAT fraud, so working in partnership with online marketplaces is a critical step in achieving this. Extending online marketplaces' liability for VAT in their supply chain is likely to bring a significant cost and another added compliance burden for these businesses to adhere to. The right way to address this is through partnership rather than just shifting enforcement. On to some of the more worrying measures. On digital taxation, reforming international tax rules for digitalisation is a hugely complex task that no one should underestimate. The UK government has issued a position paper setting out its willingness for unilateral action and in the meantime seeking an extension to withholding taxes, in effect to tax digital companies more. Unilateral changes hamper coordinated international action to reform the global tax system and can damage countries' competitiveness. Our view is that businesses would prefer to work with government to ensure any new rules don't hinder the contribution that digital businesses make to economic growth. Freezing indexation allowance. With inflation running high, the changes on corporation tax have effectively broadened the base. This could put businesses off undertaking transactions such as expanding and investing in the UK economy. On IR35 rules extended to private sector. A consultation on extending IR35 off-payroll rules to private sector is the best we could have hoped for. It's important that the government undertakes a proper impact assessment to fully understand the problems associated with the public sector. Furthermore, the timing suggests this might not take effect till at least 2019, allowing businesses to get ready. The government has heeded our suggestion for a comprehensive review of employment status from a tax perspective as part of the Taylor Review. But at some point, the government will need to bring together these various policies into something more concrete. Thank you for listening. And to find out more, you can follow us on Twitter.